Yo, what's good, family? What's good, man? We back with another vid, man. But look though, goddamn gone. Don't worry about my hair, bro. Don't worry about the hair, cause I know y'all be, yeah. Don't worry about the hair. It's like, nah, y'all niggas don't really be worried about the hair for real. But goddamn gone, bro. I just watched the Final Destination movie, bro. And I ain't gonna lie, bro. I like it way more better than the other Final Destination movies because, like I said before in my reaction video to the trailer or whatever, make sure I go watch that too. Maybe I put a link in the video. Maybe I put a link down in the description. Maybe, but not. Just go to the channel and just scroll, man. God damn, just support it. You feel me? But now look though, got nigga so like in the last video. Well, in the trailer video, I was just saying how I like it. It might be better, and I did watch it. I did go watch it. I watched it. I want to say last week. I want to say last week or the week before last. One of those. But I did watch it, and I do rate it an 8. I rate it a good rating because I actually liked it. It actually had a backstory to why the killings was happening. You know what I'm saying? The other, like I said in the other video, the killing was just happening in the other movie just because, you know, the niggas just got them. Yeah, it was just happening. You know what I'm saying? Accidents was just happening. I get it. You know what I'm saying? But this one actually had like a little backstory to it, and you know, to build up. So they made it a 10 times better movie. And I gave it a 9, bro. 8 or 9, 8.5. It don't matter. Look, it was good, bro. I liked it or whatever. So, got dang on, man. I ain't gonna talk your head off, but let's just straight into the video. Oh, did I even tell y'all what we doing? Oh, shoot, my bad. Today we're going to be reacting to goddamn on the Final Destination ending explained in the movie review, basically. He's just going over the movie review. But let's get straight into the video, man.
After almost 15 years, the 6th installment of Final Destination is here, and this is actually one of my most anticipated movies of the summer. I watched through the first 5 again in anticipation for this, and I was genuinely intrigued to see where the franchise was going to go, and do you know what? It definitely didn't disappoint. It captured the charm, cheesiness, and creativity of the deaths which made the original so unique, and it elevated it by widening the universe and hinting that all of the deaths that occurred in the original movies dated back to their ancestors that survived the Skyview Tower disaster from the late 90s.
Oh, so all the deaths came from the original movies. Oh, see, that's why I'm glad I watched videos like this, bro. I'm glad I watched videos like this because I would have never knew that. I would have never even explained it. Now I think about it, she was explaining it. Okay.
1960s. They were supposed to die then, but they were saved by Iris. It was a great way of connecting the movies in a loose way. But anyway, let's dive into the movie, discuss the ending, answer if there'll be another one, and I'll share if it's worth a watch. So let's get into it.
R.P. Todd, man. R.P. Todd, man. He played in a lot of good movies, man. R.P. Todd, bro. R.P. Todd, bro.
View of Final Destination.
Candyman, all that, bro. He played in a lot of good movies, bro.
Nation Bloodlines and the ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The opening scene. The opening scene of this movie is one which kind of kick-started the entire process of everything that we came to see throughout all of the 5 movies that came before this one. We saw Iris and Paul as they went to the Skyview restaurant where Paul planned on proposing to Iris. Iris had a premonition which saw everybody on the over 400-meter high building die in the most horrific of ways. Falling from the top, being caught on fire, having a piano plowing into them, and getting split in half in an elevator as it started its descent. Everything about this was just peak disaster movie, and it worked.
Hey, look. I don't mean to keep starting the video, but look though, bro. If y'all seen, if it's people who seen the movie, right? But if y'all seen they got on dancing floor scene, I'm trying to tell you, all the black people would have been gone. The way he was just hitting that bit, like I ain't even gonna expose the song. Like if y'all didn't see it, bro. But if y'all seen it, y'all know what I'm talking about. When they were dancing, it was on the dance floor, and they were hitting that little, yeah. Look, I ain't gonna cap, bro. I would've been gone, bro. I'm gonna keep it all right. I would've been going every time. Like, if they just had to keep me playing, I would've been going every time, because like, that's how hot it was. Like, that shit, bro. I ain't gonna even spoil it, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
So well, ultimately resulting in Iris's death. However, after she had this premonition and realized what was on the horizon, she alerted everybody there and stopped the disaster from happening, which ultimately meant that the hundreds of people that were supposed to die on that day didn't, and later went on to have children, and their children also went on to have children too. And as we know, you can't cheat death because it always finds a way of catching up with you. This means that some of the people that Iris saved on that day could have been related to the main characters that we saw throughout the other movies in the show, because their death day that they managed to avoid could have been brought upon by a relative surviving 1968. With Iris saving everybody, because she was the second to last person that was supposed to have died, one before the young boy that she saved, it meant that Iris was next in line, seeing as though death had caught up with everybody that was originally there and also all of their family members. This premonition that Iris originally had was something that Steph, Iris's granddaughter, was having as a recurring nightmare, and it was brought on due to the fact that Iris was sick and was close to dying. Hence why the movie is titled Bloodlines, because Iris's whole family was looking like they were going to be facing death due to Iris's involvement in stopping it. The focus on all of this happening because of the annoying young kid who stole the penny from the fountain and it being seen as bad luck, and the penny causing the catastrophe right at the end over 50 years later was a nice touch. Plus the song Ring of Fire.
That motherfucking penny was getting on my goddamn nerves too. That shit was every fuck, man. I don't know why I keep exposing it like. But I'm gonna stop.
Being played during the very beginning, when we later went on to see the sky view, which was a ring in the sky being engulfed in flames, was the perfect choice. I'd also say Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head being on the radio as bodies were raining from the sky just made me chuckle, as it was an odd but somewhat appropriate choice. Yeah. So with Iris saving everybody on that day, it had a ripple effect, and it was now time for her family to meet their maker. The ending and every death explained. When it came to the ending of the movie, we saw each and every family member end up getting wiped out by death in one way or another. For example, the first death to occur was Iris herself, as she was impaled by the arrow from the weather vane when she sacrificed herself so that Steph would be able to keep her family safe. This was due to her stepping outside and giving her the book of how to cheat death and everybody else that had died. Following Iris dying, it then moved on to her son, which was Uncle Howard, who trod on the shard of glass that we were teased was going to be drunk by somebody at the barbecue.
That scene right there pissed me off, I ain't gonna lie.
A wide variety of other ways
it was
that
just
people were going to die,
crazy how that
such
happened.
as an explosion from the barbecue and even bouncing on a rake from the trampoline. However, after Howard trod on the glass, he slipped over, and with Eric Spear knocking the button on the lawnmower, it ultimately ended up shredding his face. It was a real brutal one.
Yeah.
After Howard,
all of them was brutal.
Would be the next
all
one
of
to
them was
die,
brutal.
as he was the next oldest. However, after being teased with his death at the tattoo parlor, following it being engulfed in flames with him dangling from the fan due to his nose piercing, it turned out that he didn't die because he wasn't actually connected by blood to Iris.
Yeah, it was
his
crazy.
mother Brenda had an affair, which meant that Howard wasn't his father, and it put him in the clear. So instead, Julia ended up being next in line and perishing. She went out for a run, and before she got down the road, Steph's prediction of how she thought Eric would die ended up happening to her.
Yeah, it was
she
crazy.
ultimately ended up falling into a bin, and as the truck lifted it up, she was stuck in there. As the truck was then driving down the road, the crusher inside of it was moving closer and closer to her until it ultimately squished her head and half her
Deadass got
body.
killed by
It
a
was
trash can,
definitely a
bro.
brutal way
Deadass.
to go. Following this, it then meant that Bobby, the youngest of Howard and Brenda's children, was next to face their demise. By this point, we had a revelation in the episode where the group went to the hospital and visited William Bloodworth, the infamous character played by Tony Todd who appeared in all of the movies. Here, he mentioned to them that it would be possible to cheat death if you either kill somebody, which would mean that you'd take the time that they had left, or you have to die and then be resuscitated, which would ultimately break the chain. We also found out here that William Bloodworth was the young boy that Iris saved on that fateful day in 1968,
Yeah.
and he was the final link in the chain if it were to ever get to him.
So in that case, it must have been following him then.
Eric thought that that would be a good way of getting him to be on the verge of death and then be able to bring him back to life. but with the MRI machine accidentally being switched on and ramped up to full. After Bobby took a bite of the nut cupcake, the machine's magnetic force was extremely strong, and it started pulling all of Eric's piercings out of his body until he was trapped in front of the machine due to the wheelchair blocking him there. With the force pulling him in deeper and deeper, he ultimately met his demise after being bent in half.
Nah, that jump was crazy.
Once that was done, Bobby
all them chains were brutal, bro. All the kills were brutal.
Out of his brother's hand. But following Eric damaging the vending machine earlier on, the metallic coil came out and went through his head when the nurse opened the door.
That's
honestly
stupid.
Another truly brutal way to go. On the cusp of surviving, but then losing it all. You might wonder why it was that Eric ended up dying when he wasn't blood related to Howard or Iris, but as Bloodworth said earlier on, if you mess with death, it gets messy. And that's exactly what happened with him standing in death's way, quite literally. With Howard and his children all now dead, that then meant that Darlene, Steph and Charlie were all facing death next in that order. With Steph thinking that going to Iris's fortress of a cabin was the best decision that they could make to keep Darlene safe, as she wanted to commit to a life of solitude there so her children could survive. They headed towards there. As they did, we got a little Easter egg of the logs on the back of a truck from Final Destination 2 driving past, which was a nice touch, but I also thought it hinted at them definitely not being safe. Once they got to the fortress, Steph's seatbelt was stuck after the van crashed, but as Darlene and Charlie made it to the entrance to the cabin, an ember from a flame caught a light on the plant that was partially dangling from when Iris was there earlier on, and it fused with the gas that was leaking and the entire cabin exploded. The force of that caused the truck to tip over, and it left Steph drowning as Charlie was stuck underneath rubble. Darlene managed to free Charlie, but as she was next on the list, she ended up being hit by a falling lamppost, which meant Steph's drowning was imminent and she'd be next. We were led to believe that she died. However, after it cut to black, she woke up and it appeared as if Charlie saved her, meaning that she died and was then resurrected, thus breaking the hunger that death had for them, making us feel like there'd be a somewhat happy ending. However, with it being Final Destination, that's never truly the case, is it? On the evening of Charlie's prom, we found out from a doctor that Steph didn't actually die. Her heart didn't stop beating, she was just rendered unconscious, which meant that death was still after them. So with the penny that caused all of that bad luck in 1968 falling out of Steph's book and it being found by the elderly lady in the modern day, it fell out of her purse and rolled onto a train track, which caused it to derail and throw 2 large logs at Steph and Charlie, rendering them dead, meaning that the cycle was now only one death away from being complete, William Bloodworth, and he himself had accepted that death was coming for him. With the cycle of death now being complete, that pretty much means that there's nowhere for the story to go, and I doubt we'd see a sequel in this franchise. One thing I think it does do though is it opens the door for there to be some kind of prequel to the 5th movie. Maybe even going back to when death first started giving people these premonitions and then hunting them down once they acted on them. Maybe give us something earlier on in the 1900s. That's something I'd watch. My review of the movie. I thought this was a really solid installment in the franchise. Considering it had been so long since the first batch of movies, this made it feel like it had never really been away. It was refreshing because it felt like a movie that you could just throw on in the mid-2000s, and I don't really feel like you get that these days.
Nah, it gave more of now than it did back then. It gave more now.
It was an absolute bloodfest, and I loved it for it. It didn't take itself too seriously, but it didn't compromise on the story that it was giving us because of that. It was engaging, gripping, and it connected to the opening scene and provided context for why death was present in the later movies. I liked the fact that we were teased with deaths and that some characters would die in ways that we wouldn't expect or see coming. It was always obvious that somebody was going to die, but by seeing it happen in a completely different way, it just provided an element of surprise, which was a good experience to feel when watching the feature. In terms of the performances, I thought they were all pretty solid. The performance of the character Stephanie was the strongest though, and I'm glad that it was, because she was the main character in the movie. So if it hadn't have been strong, then it would have been a big issue. It was great to see Tony Todd on screen reprising his role one final time. The lines that he delivered for his character hit really hard because Tony Todd actually died late last year. So with him giving a speech about not running from death and knowing that it was going to be visiting him once they all died, it just added an extra layer of power to what he was saying. When comparing this to the other movies in the franchise, I think this one has to be up there. especially when comparing.
I
it to
give
the
it. I give it
latter,
definitely
I feel
number
like
one.
The quality did dip slightly, so I'd say that this installment is definitely worth a watch if you love the originals. So there you have it, a review of.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. Like, I did like it, man. I did like it. I like the movie, bro. I definitely rated number one out of all of them because it actually made more sense out of all of them. Because they actually went through the line. You feel me? Like the bloodline. So it's like I actually went back through this goddamn time and all that. Like, yeah, I gotta see that. Like, I gotta pick that apart, the details of it. You see how she was just telling how all the people died before them, how their grandkids died, and basically went down the bloodline and then got to them two last. Yeah. But if they was to make another movie, like, I feel like, to me, I want to know how they would do it, though, if they was to make another movie. I don't know how they would do it, because everybody basically did, unless they, because he passed away, too, so it's like, yeah, everybody basically gone, so unless that was the last one, but, Final Destination, that's not going to be the last one. But, like he said, the only way they could do it is if they do it where the first started, like, where it first ever started, but, yeah, man, but I ain't talking heads off, man. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. We on to the next one.